Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today we're going to be talking about one of the NBA trades that happened tonight as the Detroit Pistons are trading for point guard Monte Morris of the Washington Wizards, who Monte Morris, was the starter last season for the Washington Wizards, had an excellent season, averaged 10.5 points per game with Washington, averaged 5 assists per game with 3 rebounds per game. Detroit is making their second trade today, where they are basically sending nothing for the player and getting a player in return. As earlier the Nets traded Joe Harris to the Detroit Pistons. So Pistons traded for Joe Harris earlier. Now they trade for Monte Morris, who, had an excellent season with the Wizards as their starting point guard. It was definitely, it was for sure known that that the Wizards were going to move Monte Morris this offseason at some point, knowing the fact that, they just traded for Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole in the Porzingis and Chris Paul trades. So we knew that Monte Morris would be traded this offseason. I just think the surprising thing to me, and I think probably to other people as well, is the fact that they traded him for only a second-round pick. They got a second-round pick from the Pistons. That was it. But in this trade, they are creating a $9.5 million, or it's like a, it's not a nine, it's some, I think it's like a $9.6 million trade exception that they are creating from this trade, which they can move that somewhere else and get. If you look at trade exceptions from the past, Dallas was able to get a trade exception in the draft from the Dallas sent Davis Bertans and the 10th overall pick to the Thunder in return for the 10th overall pick and a trade exception, because it could give in the Thunder Davis Bertans. And I think that trade exception was like a $12 or $13 million trade exception. And then they flipped that trade exception, traded that trade exception to the Sacramento Kings. And in return for that trade exception, they got Richaun Holmes, a center who in the 2021-22 season averaged 11 points per game. And then the season before that, 14 points per game. And the 24th overall pick, where they selected Olavier Maxine Prosper. So they got Richaun Holmes and the 24th overall pick for a trade exception. I know that trade exception is a little bit more it's a little bit more money than, the trade exception the Wizards are getting in this trade. But it shows you that you can move trade exceptions and get something back for it. I'm not saying the Wizards will do that with this trade exception, but who knows? Maybe there is a chance they will move that trade exception that they are getting in this trade. So the Wizards are clearing cap space, getting a trade exception, getting a second round pick for Monte Morris, is set to be a free agent in 2024. But I want to add this note as well, that this is Monte Morris's hometown. He's from Detroit, so this is really cool for him, I bet. But look at that Detroit roster. I would think maybe Detroit's going to be active in free agency still. I think Detroit's going to be after one of two players between Kelly Oubre Jr. and Grant Williams. I think they could afford one of those guys. If not, look at their roster. If they don't do anything in free agency, at point guard you have Cade Cunningham. Just look at their active roster. Even if they don't trade Bojan Bogdanovic, at shooting guard Cade Cunningham, point guard Jaden Ivey, small forward Bojan Bogdanovic. Small forward Asar Thompson, power forward Bojan Bogdanovic, center Jalen Duren. Then off the bench you have Joe Harris, Monte Morris, maybe Marcus Sasser. I don't know. He's not going to be playing a lot with Monte Morris coming to Detroit. James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley. Who else am I missing? I know I'm missing someone else. It's not going to come to. Oh, Alec Burks is also on that roster. And I can't think, there has to be someone else on their roster. Oh, Killian Hayes, but he's going to get moved. So, with Monty Williams coaching that roster, I really like the way this Detroit team looks like. And I don't even think this is what the final roster is going to look like for Detroit. I think they will be able to make some moves in free agency, probably either 1 or 2 signings, and maybe make some trades, because I think guys like James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and Killian Hayes have definitely trade potential chances to get traded. And Detroit are hearing offers on all three of the. Oh, and Alec Burks. So Detroit is hearing offers on all guys of Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, and Killian Hayes. So I think Detroit might still be active in the trade market and might be active in free agency as well. So this was a great trade for Detroit to get Monte Morris, who was the starting point guard for the Washington Wizards last season, who averaged 10.5 points per game, 5 assists per game, and 3 rebounds per game, to go to his hometown of Detroit. You guys have any thoughts on the trade? That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.